What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the Stock Hustle channel with your boy William. Today is Wednesday, November the 10th. As always, guys, nothing that is discussed on the channel is financial advice. It is simply financial education. I'm simply trying to show people you don't have to slave in those 9 to 5s if you don't want to. You can easily hustle 24/7 in the market and still accomplish all those financial goals and dreams, right? You're going to get out whatever you put in. But as always, stay focused on the good karma and the good vibes, and that'll help lead the way as well, right? That's all we're about on this channel. But to save time, let's get into it, right? So as you guys see on the top left corner, today's ticker is going to be PayPal, or otherwise PYPL, right? Um, Before I get into the chart, I guess I want to point out it did have a massive push to the downside today, as you guys do see. It did have a 10% drop, otherwise losing $24 in share price today alone after having reported earnings the day before yesterday, right, at close, right? They did beat on estimated earnings per share. Unfortunately, they did miss on the total revenue. For that, I actually like to go to TradingView because it does give a better breakdown of earnings specifically, which I already have here luckily pulled up. As you see, they were supposed to, or estimated to report $1.08 per share. They reported $1.11 per share. Estimated revenue, they were supposed to, or anticipated to report 6.228 billion. They only reported 6.182 billion. That is a miss of $45.982 million, or otherwise down 0.74%, right? I think that gives you a level set on where we stand. This is essentially an overreaction to earnings, or essentially a miss, partial miss on earnings is why you see this massive drop. However, I'm going to point a couple things out on the chart of why I'm really bullish on PayPal, right? So for those of you that are wondering what the hell is the gray, the blue, and the red on my screen, so this is a volume profile laid out on top of the candles specifically, right? What is a volume profile? It is literally the profile of concentration of volume in a ticker, right? So from blue line to blue line is where the 70% concentration of volume is, as you can easily tell. That's where the longer gray bars are. These bars are actually called nodes, right? Outside of the blue lines, right, is where the other remaining 30% of the lesser volume is, right? Generally speaking, when tickers or candles hit up in these areas, you see a lot of wicks form, right? This is where wicks form, where there are low nodes, right? Specifically. The red bar is the point of control. This is the highest point of concentration of volume in a ticker, right? Why is it important to note where the point of control is? Anytime you are trading below the point of control, it acts as gravity. It pulls you towards it. As you guys can see here, when we're trading below it, pull this toward it, consolidated here essentially for, what is this, December 21 through, what is that, February 2nd. So as you can see, a good almost 2-month cycle, essentially keeping us there locked in at the point of control. Anytime you're trading above it, as volume dwindles, first of all, you form wicks on your candles, right? That's how you can tell volume is dwindling. And then it pulls us back down towards it, as you see again from March essentially through April 5th. Again, it consolidated here on the point of control. Once again, we tried to pull away in April, May, or I guess throughout the month of May, right? We try to pull away. But again, we're pulled back down to the point of control through, what is this, May 3rd, through almost the end of May before we made another run and attempt, before we started to consolidate on the top shelf, right, of the volume, excuse me, before we recently fell and came back down to the point of control. As of October 10th, we were sitting on the point of control before we fell off, and then completely, now you see this massive dip to the downside, right, after earnings reporting, right? So specifically what happened? Number one, they were reported a miss, as you saw, on revenue, number one. Number two, they also had a downgrade in price target. Specifically, I believe it was from Raymond James. They cut them from 360 to 260 and then down to 200. On Marketbeat, it is actually disclosed. Yeah, price target cut to 200, right? If you kind of want to get an idea of price target specifically, I like to go to Nasdaq. As you see, they have a strong buy still on PayPal, even though it's at 205.42 now. 15 different firms are reporting on PayPal specifically. Analyst consensus is 291. As you see, that is the 291 average, the low being 190. We're at 205, so the 190 is out of the question. But then you see that the high is 350, right? So something to keep into account. A lot of firms are still very bullish on this, on PayPal specifically, to push to the top side, right? As of what, last week or a week ago, we were still in the 260s. A month ago, we were still, or 2 months ago, we were almost at 300. Last quarter, we were at 310 at the peak, right? And that's where it's essentially been peaked at before, earlier in the year, right? Is the 300. So this ticker is supposed to relatively trade above this, what would I call that? 245 to 284 is where it's supposed to be living, right? Essentially, this is where the higher concentration of volume is. So this is where the ticker should relatively be, right? As you gain more and more volume and these nodes up here get longer and longer, is when the ticker can actually climb up in price. But essentially, it's supposed to be up here, right? Being down here and outside of where the volume profile is designating, to me is a bullish sign, because why? As I've stated earlier, the point of control is going to pull this back up, or the point of control is going to drop. Now, is there a scenario where I see volume just completely leaving this ticker? No. Why? Well, for that, we can go into financials, right? And their earnings reporting. As I did state, they still did produce $6.182 billion in revenue. They just have a partnership that they released specifically with Venmo, so that now with essentially on Amazon, clients will be able to pay with PayPal, right? And this is actually on their third page of their presentation. I will go ahead and leave this presentation in the details on my video. If you guys want to dig through it, feel more than welcome to. I already did some digging. I found nothing but great things to report. Yeah, I get the 47 million in revenue is a big miss. However, when you're thinking of bigger picture, they also have a partnership with one of the biggest processors out of Japan. That's also here in their presentation here. Paydi. Specifically, Japan is the world's third largest e-commerce market, right? In 10 years, they surpassed $200 billion in sales. Again, that's another bullish sign that they're adding to their arsenal. I don't see PayPal going anywhere. They accept crypto now. They have crypto wallets. There's a lot of really good things behind PayPal. That is why I feel 15 smart money analysts targeted this being in the 300s, not in the 200s, right? But if you needed any other piece of confirmation to kind of seal your thought of what potentially PayPal could do, I'll lead you to this article from Barrons, right? It says here, a robot trader bought PayPal and Moderna, ditching Amazon, another bet tripled. So specifically, this is for an AI-driven investor, Qraft, which has a robot, an AI robot, right, that controls the South Korean fintech company's portfolio, right? Has around $63 million in assets across 4 different ETFs. Well, specifically, what put this AI robot on the map essentially was that in October, it actually dumped Amazon, Home Depot, Target, ConocoPhillips. It dumped a couple big name tickers, right? And it loaded up on Avis Budget, right? When it was still at the 100s. Essentially, Avis, as you've seen in the news recently, skyrocketed to 357 on a short squeeze. Now ask yourself, do you really feel that this AI-driven robot on luck happened to pick Avis? No, it saw that the short squeeze was coming and possibility and realm of possibility, bought in and produced some massive returns. Well, funny enough, this same robot that picked Avis and generated these crazy returns for this fintech company recently just picked up PayPal, and it also picked up Moderna, right? It's one of the largest holdings now, accounting for 7.7% weight of the portfolio, right? So you need to take that into consideration too. Now, this AI-driven robot for this ETF that is controlled, again, by a AI robot recently picked up Moderna and PayPal. That should tell you a lot, right? Maybe potentially anticipating the fact that PayPal is way undervalued and it should be way higher, or maybe something that we don't necessarily know yet. But in either case, that to me is pretty bullish. The fact that it picked up Avis on its own a month ahead of schedule is also pretty bullish. That leads nothing to good signs to me. The only thing that could seal this deal or ice this cake for me is if you tell me that this damn robot picked up AMC as well. Because again, at the end of the day, most of us are all apes waiting on AMC and GME, right? But we'll leave that at that. That's just a little caveat I wanted to add in. As always, guys, in the end of my videos, I like to go into my favorite tool, which is Unusual Whales. For those of you that do check the alerts or do frequently watch the alerts, I do. I religiously watch these alerts as they come through day in and day out. Specifically, we did have a couple of alerts for PayPal today, both on free and premium specifically. As you guys can see, a 2:15 call 310 call. What is this? 215 call, 210 put, right? 260, 270. There's just been a lot of frequent alerts for PayPal, right? So I picked up one of these alerts specifically at the 215. This is for today. This did alert this morning. What time was this? At 8:30 in the morning. I want you to pay attention to a couple things on these alerts, right? When you go into the alerts, you can click on volume, strike, and underlying, and it's going to lay out this chart for you. If you select 1 minute, it's going to go minute by minute, right? Essentially starting from 8:30 in the morning through when the alert triggered. The green line is the underlying price of PayPal. So as you see, PayPal was still trading in the 230s, 240s, right? 220s. It was dwindling down slowly up until this ledge right here, right? It went from 228 in 1 minute down to 210 the next. As you can see, as soon as that price fell completely down to the 210s, what ended up happening, the ask price also fell all the way down, but then check out the yellow line. This is the volume, skyrocketed to the top. And that's when you see the alert come in, right? Essentially, the alert is not only letting you know of the price drop and the volume spike, it's also giving you the absolute best price on the ask. If you pay attention to this, by the time this alert hit, the ask had fallen, what is that, down to 273 essentially for this specific call. Something to pay attention to, just something I wanted to point out in case you haven't noticed. Unusual Wells has a lot of tools, a lot of information you guys can always use to give you conviction in some of the investment decisions you guys make. But going into the flow specifically, PayPal being a larger ticker, obviously I'm going to set premium at a lot higher range. So for this ticker, I'm setting premium, at 250,000, right? $250,000. As you guys see, I have opening trades on and I have floor trades, right? Floor is going to tell you that it's urgent. Opening trade means an opening position. If you go up to the top of this list, you see that as of the 29th, the 8th, and the 3rd were the most recent trades, right? If you take off opening trades, just leave floor trades specifically, you see that there are some trades for today at the 9th, right? Well, check out these calls. 393,000 on a $212 call. 533,000 on a bought $210 call. What is this? 381,000 on a 250 call specifically. So again, these three major calls are not necessarily what is giving me conviction. It's a combination of multiple things, right? Number one, I know PayPal. Number two, I know that they are generating ridiculous amounts of revenue. Number three, the partnership now with Amazon so that they can essentially pay with Venmo, which is going to be directly through PayPal, is super bullish. The pickup of Payly out of Japan is super bullish, right? PayPal isn't going anywhere anytime soon. They adopted crypto sooner than any other platform, essentially, right? For payment, even to carry crypto on a wallet. That is also super bullish, right? There is nothing but bullish things and signs that point to PayPal going back up and this being an overreaction. But again, I'll leave the earnings report in the details of the video below and you guys can dig through it. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this, right? So I took a couple screenshots of the option chain just because I wanted to point something out, right? Specifically, if you are ever digging in an option chain and you just want to verify what you're seeing in unusual whales, check out the volume spike specifically at the close, right? 18,000 on the 205, right? Open interest is only 107. 11,027 open interest. 38,000, 12,494 open interest, right? This is probably one of the biggest at 210. 16,000, another 10,000, right? 18,000, 10,000, right? And it's just crazy. There's crazy amounts of money going into this, right? Well, some of you may be saying, all right, well, what about the puts? I got you covered too. Check this out. I took a screenshot of the puts as well, just to be sure we're being fair. This is the put section, right? But even if you add up all these puts and compare it to the call side heavily outweighs it, right? And that's, again, why we have the flow specifically and why we have this amazing tool in Unusual Whales that gives us this information. So if you're looking for the expiration for this week, this is the 11/12. As you see, it is more bullish than bearish. The 11/19 is even more bullish than bearish, right? So if you're too hesitant on this week's expiration, you can always play the 11/19 as well. And check out the strikes that are alerting: 250, 260, 280, 300. Well, to me, this is pretty bullish. Add in the little caveat of the AI robot, and you got yourself there some pretty potential tendies to earn playing PayPal on this overreaction. And I am going to predict that this is going to shoot back up to the point of control. How fast it does that, no one will really know. Again, no one can predict what the stock market does, not including myself or any other person on YouTube. But that's the beauty of the market, right? You got to take into account the risk versus the reward, and you get to make financial decisions for yourself that could potentially pay you off tremendous amounts of money if you are able to make educated decisions, right? But I'll leave it at that. If you guys have questions, as always, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. Otherwise, you can always hit me up on Twitter or IG. And until then, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.